Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be diving into some pretty heavy stuff, actually forecasting political violence.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we've got this report from CAST.
Okay.
That's the Armed Conflict Location and Event Data Project, and it's their global forecast for November 2024.
Okay.
It uses some complex algorithms and a whole bunch of historical data to try and predict where and how intense things might get.
Yeah, CAST is really a leader in this field.
Yeah.
They're using data to try and paint a picture of potential hotspots all around the world.
Right.
And what's fascinating is that they don't just focus on wars.
Oh, okay.
They're looking at a whole spectrum of organized political violence.
Wow.
Everything from violence against civilians to battles and explosions, even things like drone strikes.
So they're looking at the whole kit and caboodle.
Yeah, the whole spectrum.
So let's get right into it.
Yep.
The global forecast predicts over 17,000 events of organized political violence in November.
Wow.
That number is just staggering, 17,095 to be exact.
Yeah.
It really makes you pause and think about what's happening in the world.
It is a sobering number.
Yeah.
But it's important to remember that this encompasses a wide range of events.
Right.
From smaller scale incidents to full-blown conflicts.
Right. It's not like the entire world is going to erupt into one giant war.
Right. Hopefully not.
But the report does highlight 10 hotspots the country's projected to be the most violent.
Okay.
And while it's not a surprise to see Ukraine topping the list with a projected 4,708 events,
Yeah.
there are some other countries on there that might raise eyebrows.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
While Ukraine's position is sadly expected given the ongoing conflict, the fact that Lebanon, Russia, Palestine, Syria, Myanmar, Brazil, Mexico, Iraq, and Sudan are also on the list
Wow.
shows that the potential for conflict is widespread and not limited to one specific region or type of political system.
Yeah, it's a really important point. It's easy to think of conflict as something that happens over there, far away from our daily lives. But this report is a reminder that instability and violence can occur anywhere.
Exactly. And looking closer at these regional breakdowns can give us some deeper insights into the factors driving these predictions.
Yeah.
For example, in Russia and Ukraine, the Donetsk Oblast in Ukraine is forecasted to be the most violent area.
That makes sense given the current situation.
Yeah.
But is the situation intensifying? Are things getting worse in Donetsk?
Well, that's where we need to go beyond simply reading the numbers.
Okay.
It's vital to compare this forecast to recent months to see if things are escalating or de-escalating.
Right.
Was the average number of violent events higher or lower in Donetsk over the past few months?
Right.
That context can help us understand whether we're looking at a continuation of existing trends or a potential shift in the conflict dynamics.
Okay, so context is key.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the next region. Israel, Lebanon, and Palestine.
Okay.
The report predicts that Nabati Governorate in Lebanon will be the most volatile.
Interesting.
What's driving that prediction?
That's a great question. It's not enough to just know where things might happen.
Right.
We need to understand WHY.
Right.
Are there specific political events or social tensions in Nabatea that are contributing to this forecast?
Okay.
Perhaps there's a particular armed group that's become more active.
Mm-hmm.
Digging into those regional dynamics is what gives these numbers real meaning.
So it's like a detective novel. We've
Yeah.
got the potential crime scene.
Yes.
But now we need to uncover the motives and the suspects.
Exactly. And that's what makes this work so fascinating.
Okay, detective hats on. Let's look at Syria.
Right.
The report highlights Aleppo as the area to watch with 342 events projected for November.
Okay.
Again, we have to ask, how does this forecast align with what's already happening in Syria?
Right.
Is this a potential increase in violence compared to recent months, or are we looking at a continuation of existing trends?
Yeah.
Understanding that historical context is crucial.
Absolutely.
All right, next up is Sudan, with Khartoum predicted as the hotspot with 226 events. What's going on there? What types of violence are we anticipating, and what are the likely drivers?
That's the critical question. Is it primarily intergroup conflict, government repression, or something else entirely? The nature of the violence matters.
Yeah.
It can inform potential intervention or mitigation efforts.
Right.
So,
And lastly, we have Iran with Sistan and Baluchistan province projected to be the most volatile area.
okay.
They are forecasting 14 events.
Right.
This raises questions about internal unrest and potential spillover effects.
Absolutely. What are the underlying causes of unrest in this region? Are there ethnic or religious tensions at play? And could this violence potentially spill over into neighboring countries?
Right.
These are all crucial considerations when assessing the broader implications of this forecast. We need to look beyond the borders of Iran itself.
Right. It's all connected.
Yeah, it is.
It's all a global system.
It is a global system.
And violence in one place can definitely affect other places. It's a bit unsettling to think about all these interconnected conflicts, bubbling up around the world.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder, how accurate are these predictions anyway? Can we really foresee political violence?
It's a valid question.
Yeah.
It's important to remember that these forecasts aren't guarantees.
Right.
More like educated guesses based on historical data and current trends.
Right.
But of course, unexpected events can always, change things.
Yeah, they're always wild cards. But speaking of accuracy, the KSD report actually includes data on their October forecast.
Okay.
And interestingly, they slightly overpredicted the total number of events.
That's true. Their overall numbers were slightly off.
Yeah.
However, when we look at specific countries, they were remarkably accurate in forecasting violence in places like Nigeria, Pakistan, and Mali.
Wow.
In those cases, they were within 5% of the actual numbers.
So that's pretty impressive. It sounds like their methodology has some merit.
Yeah.
But how should we interpret this mix of overpredictions and accurate hits? Can we actually rely on these forecasts?
It's a complex question.
Yeah.
Forecasting political violence is incredibly challenging because at the end of the day, human behavior is unpredictable.
Right.
But the fact that KST is consistently accurate in certain regions does suggest their model is picking up on something real.
Right.
It can provide valuable insights into potential risks and areas of concern.
On the flip side, the report also highlights where their predictions were significantly off in October.
Right.
They underestimated violence in Sudan, Syria, Russia, Ukraine, and Lebanon.
And that's where things get really intriguing. These deviations suggest there might be emerging factors they didn't account for in their model.
Okay.
It could be anything from a sudden shift in political alliances to the emergence of a new armed group, or maybe even something completely unforeseen.
So are these forecasting misses just glitches, or are they signs of something bigger, something changing in the global landscape?
That's the million-dollar question. It could indicate that the traditional drivers of conflict are evolving, or that new unforeseen factors are coming into play. It underscores the importance of constantly refining these models and adapting to a rapidly changing world.
It's almost like trying to predict the weather. You can get pretty close, but there's always a chance of a surprise storm.
Absolutely.
But even with those limitations, this kind of forecasting can be incredibly valuable, right?
Absolutely. Even if it's not perfect, it provides a framework for understanding current events and anticipating potential risks.
Yeah.
It can inform humanitarian aid efforts, diplomatic strategies, and even business decisions.
Okay, so we've got this global forecast, the regional breakdowns, and some insight into how accurate these predictions have been.
Right.
But what does this all mean for us, for the average person? Why should we care about forecasting political violence?
That's a great question. On a practical level, this information can help you stay informed about potential risks when traveling or doing business internationally. But perhaps more importantly, it challenges us to think critically about the world around us.
To not just accept the headlines,
Exactly.
but to dig deeper and try to understand what's driving these conflicts.
Precisely, we need to look beyond the surface and consider the complex interplay of factors that contribute to violence, poverty, inequality, political instability, climate change. These are all interconnected issues that play a role.
So it's about understanding the root causes, not just the symptoms.
Exactly, and recognizing that these conflicts, while geographically diverse, are often interconnected. What happens in one part of the world can have ripple effects across the globe.
Right. It's all part of a larger system. So we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about global trends, regional hotspots, the accuracy of these forecasts, and what it all means for us. But I'm curious what stood out to you in this report. What were some of the aha moments?
For me, it's the sheer scope of potential violence that's most striking. Over 17,000 predicted events in a single month.
Yeah.
It's a stark reminder of the challenges we face in building a more peaceful world.
Yeah, that number really hit home for me too. And it's not just the numbers themselves, but what they represent. Human suffering, displacement loss. It's a sobering reminder of the stakes involved.
It is, and it underscores the importance of understanding the root causes of these conflicts.
Right.
Poverty, inequality, political instability, climate change. These are all factors that contribute to violence.
Yeah.
Addressing these issues is essential if we want to create a more sustainable peace.
Absolutely. It's not just about putting out fires, it's about preventing them from starting in the first place. And this report, as dense and complex as it is,
Yeah,
gives us some clues about where those fires might ignite.
it does. And it reminds us that these conflicts, while geographically diverse, are often interconnected.
Right.
What happens in one part of the world can have ripple effects across the globe.
Yeah.
We can't ignore what's happening over there because eventually it can impact us all.
It really drives home the point that we're all part of a global community, whether we like it or not. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing you'd like our listener to take away from all of this?
I'd say it's the importance of staying informed and engaged. Don't just passively consume the news. Seek out diverse perspectives. Challenge your own assumptions and ask tough questions. The more we understand about the complexities of conflict, the better equipped we are to be part of the solution.
Well said. This has been a fascinating, albeit intense, deep dive into the world of forecasting political violence.
Yeah.
We've learned a lot, and hopefully it sparks some new thoughts and questions for you, our listener.
And remember, even though we can't predict the future with certainty, we can use this information to be more aware, more prepared, and more proactive in our pursuit of peace. Stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.